Hi guys, I'm recording another tutorial. I wanted to show people two things. One is how to make a hair texture for The Sims 4, and then the other is how to apply that texture to an existing hair mesh. This is something that I just learned how to do myself, so if I'm a little bit slow with this, forgive me. So before you start doing this, there's a couple programs that you're gonna need. You're gonna need Sims 4 Studio, and you're gonna need Photoshop. I'll have links to get Sims 4 Studio in the description. With Photoshop, you're on your own because that's something that you have to pay for. So, when you decide to retext your hair, the first thing that you want to do is you want to go find the mesh that you want to use as like a basis for your retexture. So I've already done this. You just download the mesh that you want to use like you would any other piece of custom content. And then you want to navigate over to your documents folder in Sims 4 Studio and then that mods folder rather than your main game one. And whatever mesh that you want to retexture, you drop it in your Sims 4 Studio mods folder. And then, let me go back to the main menu so I can show you guys how this works. You go to Sims 4 Studio, you hit create cast standalone, okay, fine, and you select your mesh, you say next. Whoops. You don't have to select all of the swatches, just hit whichever one you want to use as the basis for your retexture. So you hit next, you say whatever you want to name it as, so I'm going to name it this, Newsy Gaze Jenny Sims, because I'm using Jenny Sims's mesh. You say yes, you want to replace, in my case, because I already started this and then I started the tutorial. When you go to do your recolor, first thing you need to do is you need to export your mesh. So you hit that button, you say, you name it whatever. So it's Gaze, in my case, it's Gaze Mesh Jenny Sims, right? And it's a PNG image. You save it, say yes. Okay, so now you have this. And you go open it in Photoshop, which I've already done. And once you open it, this is what it looks like. It's a bit of a mess. It looks funny. Before I start, one thing to be wary of when retexturing is you can see how there's some wispier pieces of hair here. They're kind of small and they're kind of hard to see. You want to make sure that you hit all of those, because just to use another hair as an example, I'm working on this one, and you can see if you zoom in, let me find it, there's a very small piece of hair that the first time I tried to retexture this hair I completely missed. Do you see that little black thing here that I have my mouse on top of? That's part of the mesh, and if you don't retexture that, your hair is going to look weird. It's going to come out, in my case it came out with some weird white dots on it, so that's something to be mindful of when you're retexturing, is make sure you get all the small pieces too. So first thing I'm going to show you is how to make the texture, and then I'm going to show you how to do the actual act of retexturing itself. So to make your texture, you want to start with an image that is 300 pixels by 700 pixels and make sure it has a transparent background. For things where you want to do a bunch of colors, you would want to start with a blonde base texture, so that's what we're going to make today. First, you pick, whoops, I gotta move this stuffed animal that is on my desk because he's blocking my view of my paint bucket, and that's a problem, Simba, get out of the way. Alright, so first thing you want to do is you want to pick your color. In my case, it's this dark brown, although I don't know why that's here because I'm pretty sure when I did the background it was lighter, so I'm going to pick, let's pick, what's a good color? This one, yeah, that's a blonde. That's sort of blondish. So you pick your whatever color. In my case, it's this blonde. You get your paint bucket. That's the wrong button. This is your paint bucket, and you click it. There you go. Okay. Now, next thing you do is you go over to your filter. You do noise. Add noise. I like to use about 25%. Some people do 20%. It's down to individual preference. I like 25%. You make sure that your distribution is whatever that word is, Gaussian, I don't know how to pronounce that, and then monochromatic. So, yeah, I'm not good at talking, but, you know. That's your first step. There you go. So now you take your color again and you make it a little darker because you're, wait, no, we're doing highlights first, not shadows, duh. You make it lighter, not darker. I'm dumb, I'm sorry. So you make it lighter, and this is gonna be your highlight type of shade thing that you're doing. To highlight shadow, something or other, that, yeah. I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I might be, we will see. I have to see how this looks when I do it. I think I'm doing it right though. I can't remember if I did lighter or darker first when I did this. I don't remember. But you want to do is you want to take your brush. You take a, what brush is this? This is your hard round brush. It's set to 50 pixels. So you take that, you hold down your shift key. All right, and you go about to, oh, let's say about here in your image. Whoops. Don't do that. And you make a line. And you kind of take it and you kind of scribble until you have a nice chunk of blonde here. Yeah, okay. And then you go and do the same thing on the bottom. So maybe right about here-ish. I feel like this isn't really in the right place, but it'll do. You kind of have to play with it and see what you like. You can't, I don't do it the same way every time. I've made a couple of these just to get some practice, and I don't put everything in the same spot. Whoa, okay, that's really messy. I'm sorry. Hang on. I don't put everything in the same spot every time. Apparently, I can't talk and paint at the same time, so. Alright, so we're going to do one up here. Yep. There we go. Alright, now, whoop. Oh boy, that's a little smudgy. That's a little smudgy. Hold on. Ooh, it's ugly. Okay. I'm trying to see if it's like the same size. Sometimes I have trouble with that. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to your filter. Oh, what do you do? What is the filter? It's brush strokes. Yeah, you go to brush strokes and you make sure you hit sprayed strokes. You want to take your stroke length and your spray radius and crank them all the way to the right. Make sure it's vertical direction. Okay, there you go. And then you do filter, blur, motion blur. Now for this image, since it's larger, you can have more of a distance and it'll still look like a hair texture type of thing, but you can see as you start cranking up the distance, let's do 300, it gets harder to kind of see the individual texture on the image in some parts of it, if that makes sense. But I'm gonna do what I think looks right, so let me tweak this for a second here. 100's a little too jagged, I guess is the word I would use. Okay, 120, it's not quite right either. Let's try 130. I'm not very good at this at all. See, I'm still learning, and you can tell because I'm sitting here getting frustrated. Like, okay, let's do 140 for right now, and I'm gonna take the thing here. Now you can see that if you go in the image, you look real quick, it has these lines on the top and it's kind of like they stand out. So we're going to crop those out on the top and the bottom. So you take that, select your image that you want to keep, and then you crop. Alright, so now we have our base texture, sort of. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to add some shadows, which I think is what I got mixed up with the first part where I was like, what am I doing? But whatever, you know. I've recorded like 3 different things today, so my voice is kind of giving out. You can probably hear. So I apologize for that. Let's see. So we're going to pick a color that's a little darker. And this is, again, something that you have to play by ear. You take your brush again, and on your new layer, you do a line here. We're going to pretend that's not really an ugly color, but... And then you do another... God, every time. Don't do that. Do another line. Make sure they're not connected like that. For some reason, that keeps happening to me, and I don't understand why, but for whatever reason, that's an issue now. So it's not really the same color on the top and the bottom, but that's fine. I don't think anyone's hair is like uniform all the way around their head. So we should be good. Okay, so now we're going to do the motion blur again, and that is way too much motion blur because you can't even see the shadow on the hair, which is crazy. Whoops, I totally did the wrong thing. What am I doing? Let me undo motion blur, and that way we can set our pixels again. So motion blur, here we go. All right. So let's change the distance a little bit to, I think 120 is a little too harsh. Whoa, what did I just do? I have no idea. Undo that, please. Okay, I accidentally deleted that. I'm sorry. So what we're gonna do for the 50th time is the motion blur, yeah? Okay, and I feel like the 100 and whatever was a little too harsh. So we're gonna do 100, we're gonna try 110 and see what that looks like. So, still a little bit harsh, but I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna take the shadow layer and I'm gonna set it to soft light and see what that does. So that makes it brighter. Let me try doing normal and then cranking down the opacity. Maybe that'll help a little bit. You just kind of, honestly, a lot of the texture making that I've done is just about experimenting. When I figured out how to make it look like hair, I was like, yes, okay, I can do this. But then I started doing more stuff and I was like, this is really confusing. So I'm gonna try 50% opacity. And I think that looks okay, except for on the bottom, but I'm gonna keep it because I've made about 14 of these damn things and I'm tired of it. So, it's important to start with a blonde texture because if you're using, and I recommend doing this, if you're using Pooklet's color actions, they have instructed people to start with this base color, and apparently it only takes to like lighter colors. Like it only works if you make a blonde base first. It's kind of weird, but that's how that works. So now we have our base, we're gonna just do this color action. And that's what it looks like. Now let's compare this to the other texture that I just made a few minutes ago. If I can find it, that would help. Is it in my texture folder? Alright, so I've made 2 base textures so far, and this one, I don't know, they're a little bit, they're a little different. I don't like the one that I just made. So I'm not going to save this because I don't like it. I like this one better. Don't ask me why, I just do. So, to get your color actions, and I'm not going to do every single one of these for this particular texture because I've already done it, but just to show you how they work. Let's say that you have these color actions installed, right? And you want a unnatural color, so you decide on, let's say this medium blue. You click on it and you just hit play selection, and there you go, there's your medium blue, and then you save that, right? Let's pretend we're saving this because I've already done this. And what we're going to do is we're going to open another one of my textures to see what this looks like. So this is the texture that I've done, and I've already recolored it with every single color action that Pooklet has made available to the general public. So now when you have all of your textures saved in every color that you want them, you're going to go back into your Photoshop of the mesh that you're working with, and you're going to do a new layer, and you're going to say, with your background layer selected that has all the base hair on it, you're going to do use previous layer to create clipping mask. I believe there's also a keyboard command for this. This is called a layer mask, but I can't for the life of me remember what that command is, and I'm not going to go Google it right now. So just bear with me. We're going to start with, let's see. We're going to start with the natural textures. One thing I forgot to mention is that if you're working with a hair where the pieces suddenly change direction, and instead of going up and down, they're going side to side, you're going to need to rotate your textures accordingly and then save a version where it's going in both directions. You can see how with some of these I have one going up and down and then one going sideways. We have horizontal and vertical textures of, files for this color and then some other ones. And that's important because if you put a texture on a hair and it doesn't match the direction of the hair, it's going to look kind of weird. So, just something to be aware of. But for this tutorial, we're going to take our dark brown texture, we're going to drag it in here and you're making sure as you do this that you have your layer mask selected, right? Make sure you have your correct layer selected in Photoshop, right? And my voice is giving out, I'm sorry. You want to line up your hair texture with the edge of the hair mesh. So in this case, it's kind of over here. And you place it, you press Ctrl-T, and that enables free transform mode. And you spread it over the hair. And basically do this until you think it looks weird, and then stop, because if you stretch it too much, it's going to look kind of funny. But you can do this repeatedly until you've covered the whole hair. That's pretty much what you're supposed to do. So now we're going to place this, and just for tutorial purposes, I'm going to do this whole hair. We're going to do layer, again, new layer. Make sure, and now on this part, you got to make sure you have your background layer selected once more so that you have your layer mask again. You click OK. Do the same thing. Alright, so now you got to go grab your texture again. And you line it up with the image in the way that you want. You press place, Control T, and then you spread it. We have to do this one more time, apparently. Yeah. Alright. And just as you do this, kind of just watch and make sure you cover the whole mesh, because otherwise it's going to look really weird. Just so you know. Alright. And I don't know why the shadow is there, but I'm going to assume it's not a problem. If I'm wrong, we'll know later. Alright. And then we do this one more time. We are going to click our background layer, do layer, new layer. Oh, come on, really? Hand? Could you work with me? Sorry. Do the same thing where you have to have your clipping mask enabled, right? Okay, so it took me a minute. There we go. Alright, place, and then, like I said, this is the part where you have to watch a little more closely because it's very wispy and it's hard to see, or at least I think it is. Alright, so that looks like it's evenly covered. Yeah, I would say so. So we're going to save this off. I'm going to save it as gaze mesh tutorial. Okay. I'm running out of breath. Don't mind me. I feel like I just ran a marathon, but I didn't. All I did was record for an hour. But sometimes that's a little taxing. So we save that off, right? So you go back into Sims 4 Studio now that you have your saved texture. You create your new swatch. So you add swatch, right? And you make it whatever color the hair is. So that's roughly a dark brown. Let's just pretend that is. And then you import your texture. And there it is. So now it's kind of hard to tell in Sims 4 Studio just exactly how this comes out. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to test it in game. So save your package, right? Alright, now close everything. Close out of Sims 4 Studio, close out of Photoshop, close out of close out of your whole life here. And that's where the mesh is. I don't know why I still have that open. But for me, it's easiest to do this because I have a lot of custom content, like in my personal game. So I made a mods folder that's just for when I decide to test some hairs. So I'm going to delete these because those are older and I was working on them myself. So we're going to go back over to our hair folder and we're going to find our mesh. Oops. Yeah, we're going to find the thing we just recolored. This is going to be our test file. And we're going to paste that in there, and then we have to go get the mesh. So this is, let's see, Newsy Gaze, and I know I just put that in Sims 4 Studio, so I'm going to go find it. Let's see. Newsy Gaze, there we go, copy, paste. Alright, and now we have to wait for Sims 4 to open. I'm going to switch out my mods folder real quick, though, because obviously it's not going to work unless I do that. So let me boogie on over. If you're making a hair testing folder, this is how you would take your mods folder out. You just put it on your desktop, and then you wait for it to go. And you take your hair testing mods folder. Make sure you have the resource.cfg file in there, because otherwise it won't work. You take this, you drag it in to your Sims 4 folder, like you would with anything else. Just drag it in there. Alright, so now we're going to fire up Sims 4, and it's probably going to take like 86 years to actually open. So in the meantime, maybe I will put in a brief musical interlude. I'm not really sure yet. Oh, our mods are popping up here. We have our mesh and we have my retexture. And that's all. So I'm going to start a new game so that we can jump right into CAS, and I'll show you how this looks in CAS. Hopefully it's not terrible. Hopefully I didn't fuck anything up. We will see. This is a great adventure. So what we're going to do is we're going to filter this by content, custom content, and you can see my retexture right there. It's just chilling, and I left the original swatch in there for some reason, but that's okay. We're going to ignore that part. So here is the mesh, right? Here's my retexture. Second swatch, there's my retexture. Isn't it pretty? Do you like it? I like it. It looks alright. Doesn't look terrible. Do you see that? Isn't that amazing? I don't know. Hopefully your retexture looks similar and hopefully you like it. I will actually be putting up my retexture of this hair. I'll put it up for download, but I have to finish doing all the colors first, so that's going to take a while. I'm not going to upload this until that's done. So by the time you're seeing this video, there should also be a link to this retexture. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful. It was kind of all over the place because I'm still learning how to do these things myself, but I like sharing things that I know with other people because I know how frustrating it is to want to do something and not know how to do it, especially where video games and modding and retextures are concerned. The only thing I would change about my retexture if I knew how to is I would add just slightly brighter highlights. Like, not this bright, but a little brighter, you know? If anybody knows how to do that, please let me know, because I'm still making, you know, these basic ass textures and I'm still struggling, and it's a mess. But I'm actually very pleased with how this came out because I expected it to look like shit, and it does not look like shit, so I'm delighted. But thank you guys